They gave me a Tuesday morning to disappear. That's not the kind of thing a man forgets. The specific light in a room, the way sound goes when a door closes behind him. It was 8:15, overcast. The floor hum of the press line carrying through the walls, the way it always did. I had a mop in my hand when the floor supervisor told me Donna Price wanted me in the main office. I leaned the mop against the break room wall and went up the back stairs, still wearing my work boots, still smelling like floor cleaner and machine oil. I wasn't worried. I'd been on that floor for 4 years and I'd never been written up once. Donna Price had been VP of Operations for 8 months. She was sharp, fast-talking, and she had never once asked anyone in maintenance what our names were. She had a manila folder on her desk, and a woman from HR beside her, whose name I didn't catch. She told me my position was being eliminated. She used the word restructuring twice. She slid a single sheet across the desk and asked me to sign it. A separation agreement. 60 days of pay, no contest. I looked at the paper. I looked at her. I did not raise my voice. "Is there anything else I need to know?" I said. She looked slightly annoyed that I wasn't upset. "You'll want to clear your locker today," she said. "Security will walk you out." So that's what happened. A young man named Hector from security, good kid, apologized twice under his breath, walked me down the stairs. Across the floor I had cleaned 400 times, past the press line and the loading dock, past the original east wall, where you could still see the old Callaway industrial plaque that hadn't been polished in years. I turned in my badge at the front desk. I carried my locker box to my truck, a thermos, a photograph of my son Eli at his high school graduation, a small worn Bible I kept in the top shelf. I put the box on the passenger seat, and I sat there for a moment in the parking lot and looked at the building. I had poured the footings for that east wall in 1996. I had not mentioned that to anyone in 4 years. There was no reason to. A man does the work in front of him, and he lets the work speak. That was a lesson I'd learned the hard way, a long time ago. Here is what I had never told Donna Price or anyone else in that building. 28 years earlier, I had co-founded Callaway Industrial with a man named Cal Merritt. We had started it in Cal's pole barn with a second-hand stamping press and a line of credit that took us 4 years to pay down. We built it from 18 employees to nearly 300. In 2001, when my wife Joanna got sick, I stepped back from day-to-day operations. When she passed in 2003, I stepped back further still. Cal ran the company. I raised Eli. By the time Cal sold to a private equity group in 2014, I had been out of the building for years. But I had never sold my equity. Cal and I had talked about it twice. Both times something came up and the paperwork never got finalized. My original 34% stake, recorded in the certificate of incorporation filed with the state in 1997, had never been formally dissolved, never transferred, never released. I had a copy in a fireproof box in my workshop, sitting under Joanna's old letters and Eli's first report card. I knew what it said. I had simply never had occasion to use it. I went home that Tuesday. I made a pot of coffee. I called Eli at school. He was starting his 2nd year of engineering, doing well. And I told him I was between situations and not to worry. He said, "Dad, you never worry about anything." I told him that wasn't entirely true, but I appreciated the thought. Then, I went out to the workshop and I sanded the drawer fronts. I'd been fitting for 3 weeks. There is nothing that steadies a man faster than a piece of wood taking shape under his hands. 16 days later, my phone rang. The number was a Chicago area code. The woman on the other end introduced herself as Margaret Hollis, senior counsel for Trident Holdings, the firm that had entered exclusive negotiations to acquire Callaway Industrial. She said, "Mr. Greer, I apologize for reaching out cold. I need to ask you something and I want to be straightforward about why." I said, "I appreciate that." She explained that Trident's due diligence team had been reviewing Callaway's corporate formation documents. They had found the original certificate of incorporation. They had found my name. They had run a title search on the equity records and confirmed that my stake had never been transferred, never released, and was, as of that morning, still legally on record. "A 34% equity position," she said carefully, "cannot be conveyed in a sale without your signature, Mr. Greer. The acquisition cannot close without your participation." I held the phone and looked out the workshop window at the elm tree in the yard. It was a clear afternoon. A cardinal was sitting in the low branches, very still. "I see," I said. There was a pause. "Are you aware of this?" she asked. "I am," I said. Another pause. "We'd like to meet with you at your convenience," she said. "Trident and the Callaway board." At your convenience. I told her I would need a few days to speak with my own counsel. She said, of course. She said to take whatever time I needed. She did not ask me to hurry. My attorney, a retired man named Fred Ellinger, who had known me since Eli was in diapers, read through the documents over 2 evenings and called me Saturday morning. Walt, he said, you understand what this means. I said I did. They cannot close without you, he said. The deal is in the range of $60 million. I thanked Frank and I called Margaret Hollis back and told her I was as available Monday at 10 at my home, if that was acceptable. They came in 2 cars, Margaret Hollis and her associate from Trident, 2 board members from Callaway whose names I didn't recognize. The current ownership had changed hands twice since Cal's time. A man named Rigby, who was the board's legal counsel, and Donna Price. She was the last one out of the second car. She stood in my driveway in a gray blazer and she looked at my house. The same modest ranch house I had. Lived in for 31 years, the workshop out back, the elm in the yard. And then she looked at me, and I watched her face do the arithmetic. The maintenance man, the mop, the locker box, the separation agreement she'd had me sign. I said, come in. I had coffee ready. I set out cups and I sat at the head of my own kitchen table, and I let Frank sit beside me. And I listened while Margaret Hollis laid out the terms of the proposed acquisition and the board's request for my participation. When she finished, I opened the folder Frank had prepared. Inside was a copy of the 1997 Certificate of Incorporation, my name printed clearly on the founding line. Beside it was a letter Joanna had framed for me once. A note Cal Merritt had written the day we poured those east wall footings. Walt, this is ours. Whatever comes, we built something real. I kept it in the folder because it felt right to have it there, not as a weapon, just as the truth of the thing. I signed, not because I owed them anything. I signed because the plant employed 240 people, and Frank had secured, as a condition of my signature, a written agreement that the Trident acquisition would include a 3-year no layoff covenant for the hourly workforce. That had been my only condition. Donna Price did not speak during the meeting. When they stood to go, she paused in the kitchen doorway. She looked like she was trying to find words. I saved her the trouble. Thank you for making the drive, I said. Safe travels. She nodded once and walked out. Margaret Hollis shook my hand on the porch. She said, Mr. Greer, I want you to know, the workers' covenant was Trident's easiest yes of this entire process. I told her I was glad to hear it. Eli called that evening. I'd texted him just enough that he'd know something had happened. He called from his dorm. And I sat on the back porch in the last of the evening light and told him the whole story, starting from the Tuesday morning in Donna Price's office. He was quiet for a long time after. Then he said, Dad, you mopped floors there for 4 years and you never said a word. I liked the work, I said. Did you ever think about telling them? I looked at the elm tree, the cardinal gone now, the branches still against a pale October sky. Not until they gave me a reason to, I said. The 240 people on that floor went home on Friday the same as they always had. They didn't know my name, and that suited me fine. Cal Merritt's name was still on the building. Joanna's was on the founding papers beside mine. I had listed her as the silent partner the day we filed, a thing I had never explained to anyone. Some things are just between a man and the people who mattered most to him. A man builds something real, and he raises his son, and he keeps his word. That's always been enough for me.